Hi, good afternoon, and welcome to this afternoon's webinar entitled Solving Old Problems in New Ways with Infor Mingle. My name is Richard Hughes, and joining me this afternoon, and indeed the organizer of this session, is Emma Mitchell. Okay, so briefly the agenda for this afternoon. First of all, we'll just spend a couple of minutes just talking about what is Infor Mingle, a couple of definitions, just sort of position the product within the Infor product stack. We'll see how it forms part of the Infor 10x strategy. We'll take a look in a little bit of detail of some of the fundamental concepts behind Mingle, some of the pillars, if you will, of the platform itself. And then what we'll do is we'll take a look at, a closer look at the product in action, take a look at some of the screens, just walk you through the, through the Mingle environment and just talk a little bit about what it is in concrete terms that Mingle delivers, and talk a little bit about some of the goals of why Mingle was developed and how hopefully these goals have been met. We'll then just take a look at that product in action. As I said, we'll switch across to a demo machine and we'll take a look at Mingle, perhaps as it relates to Sun Systems, perhaps something some of you will be more familiar with, a familiar connected ERP product from the financials area. So we'll take a look at Mingle working with Sun Systems, and then we'll just wrap up with a summary of some of the features and take a quick look at some of the things we can expect to see from Mingle in forthcoming releases, and then we'll close off the session with a Q&A session as always. So hopefully this should take about half an hour to 40 minutes, so we aim to be done by about 2:40, 2:45 the latest. Okay, so what is Mingle, and really where does it fit into the Infor product strategy and the Infor product stack? Well, Infor Mingle is what used to be called, it came to light, it's probably born as a product with the initial releases of Infor 10, and is what used to be called social space. So fundamental to the delivery of the Mingle platform, there are a number of key technologies that we'll see, things like Microsoft SharePoint, Infor Ion, but really Infor Mingle is what used to be called social space, and it's really the interactive and collaborative element of the Infor 10 platform that really brings together the underlying ERP applications, brings together all of the messaging, all of the workflows, alerts and tasks, and really presents that in a single unified application workspace. Now Mingle has undergone the evolution of social space into Mingle came about for a couple of reasons. Primarily it was part of the Infor 10x release, and the Infor 10x release, well, indeed the 10x strategy with Infor, was really aimed at providing a common user interface, a common look and feel for all of the applications within the product stack. And as part of that strategy for rolling out Infor 10x, one of the things that Infor did is they actually brought in, or they founded an internal design company called Hook and Loop, whose sole aim was really to design attractive user-looking interfaces for all of the Infor applications. And indeed Mingle was in fact the first of the applications within the Infor product stack to use the user interface that was developed by this design agency, Hook and Loop. So in simple terms, the Infor 10x strategy, or the aim of the Infor 10x release, was to bring a common look and feel across all of the Infor applications, to combine a clean, easy to use and hopefully intuitive interface across all of the applications, and with Mingle in particular to bring some of those user interface elements that we've come to expect from applications outside the workspace, particularly social networking applications, things like Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, all of those collaborative tools that we're used to working with outside of the enterprise. to actually bring that back into the enterprise and to use that to work around business process. So that's how Mingle came about. So as we said, at the heart of Mingle there are a couple of key technologies. Not least of all is Infor Ion. So Ion is the Infor integrated open network, and Ion is something we'll be dealing with in a seminar next week. But for the purposes of this presentation this afternoon, all we need to understand is that within any organization, if we look at this diagram starting from the left-hand side, moving across to the right, within any given organization there may be a whole host of ERP applications, front office applications, maybe CRM applications, human resource applications, payroll, expense management, all sorts of different things, and they produce different kinds of documents. The example given here is a sales order, but of course that it could be a purchase requisition, it could be an expense claim, it could be an invoice, a credit note. But the information to produce that document may come from one or more different sources, but the way in which the information used to produce that document, as we'll see in a second, a lot of that information is not really captured inside a system. So Ion is really a platform, and Mingle in particular is something that allows us to capture all of those things that happen outside of the core applications traditionally happen outside of the core applications within an organization, and to bring them together so that we can then capture make those sort of conversations around a business process visible within a system. So the technology behind that is Ion. So Ion really is just the way that all of these business documents are recorded and ultimately delivered. If we look at the things on the right-hand side, they can be delivered in a number of ways, through things like dashboards, through mobile applications, and in the common workspace that we'll be looking at today, which is Infor Mingle. So Mingle is fundamentally the delivery platform that we said, a single user interface for delivery of all of these different elements, documents, collaboration around pieces of information within an organization that may have come from different systems, but allowing us to get to all of that from a single user interface and to interact in a collaborative manner with other people within our organization. So Ion is really a fundamental part of the Infor 10X strategy, and indeed it's fundamental to Infor Mingle. So in terms of how this breaks down in terms of the products, in theory you could buy you could have Infor Mingle and not have Sun Systems or not have expense management, but then there really wouldn't be a lot to necessarily deliver through the Mingle interface. So in real terms, it's probably more likely that Mingle will be implemented as a complementary platform or complementary set of technologies to one or more Infor back-end applications. And as we said, because Ion is fundamental, in order for Mingle to work, then of course Ion will also need to be purchased or implemented as part of the Mingle implementation. Okay, so in terms of what are we trying to achieve with Mingle? What are the objectives? What are the goals of a product like Mingle, and what is it actually doing? Infor have come up with this concept of what is what can be called the disparate enterprise. So the disparate enterprise is where we have different things within an organization. So we have applications, we have people, potentially we may have machines, and we have lots and lots of data, whether that's data in reports, whether that's data in business documents we talked about before, things like sales orders, purchase orders, invoices. And all of those things are not necessarily captured, and all of those things are not necessarily happening in an integrated manner. So in order to produce something like a sales order at the end of the day, or to maybe produce a purchase order to a supplier, there may be a number of different things that need to happen before we can get to that document. We obviously need to do something in a given application. There's probably some kind of a process that needs to be followed, perhaps around authorization of that document, but more often than not, there's a lot of conversations and there's a lot of things that happen around these business processes and documents that are not really held within any, not really captured within any given system. As an example, we use, internally within Eclipse, we have conversations that obviously happen on things like the internal telephone system. We have people talking to each other on Skype, maybe using Link or MSN Messenger, a lot of conversations around email attachments, maybe things like specification documents flying around. All of those things are relevant to a given business process, but that supporting information and that conversation is not really captured anywhere. So the idea behind Mingle is that all of these conversations can start to be captured, and we can start to capture how these conversations that are traditionally external to any kind of system, we can start to capture these conversations and how they relate to the business process. So the answer to this problem of the disparate enterprise is, surprise, surprise, Infor Mingle. So what hopefully a platform like this can allow us to do, if it is implemented correctly, is by bringing social collaboration and business process management together in a single platform, we can bring all of these things together. Hopefully it'll allow us to work faster or work more efficiently. Ultimately, if we can deliver this information through mobile devices, we can work anywhere. And also, fundamental to Infor Mingle are two other key concepts. One is that everything is contextual, so we can share the context of anything that we're working on, whether that's a document, whether it's in some systems terms, whether that's an account inquiry or a payment run. We can actually share the context of an embedded application within Mingle, and then share that with a group of people, connections, people we're connected to, other users within the organization, and they can actually drill back and they can interact with that document or that screen within the system, because maybe we need to get them to make a decision or review something or actually authorize a document. So we can actually start to bring in information that traditionally, or conversations that were traditionally happening outside of the system, but at the same time where we've got maybe multiple applications that work together to produce an end result. And again, maybe traditionally this happens in a very disparate fashion. We can start to pull all of that information together, and we can take the context of those applications and we can share that across the business. So how is this user interface delivered? What does it actually look like? Well, what we'll do now is we'll just take a closer look and just walk you through some example screens of the Mingle user interface, and we'll take a look, as I said, towards the end of some examples, maybe using Sun Systems technology. But effectively, the Mingle platform is structured in the same fashion, no matter what back-end applications we're using. So we can roughly break down the Mingle application into a number of different areas. Fundamental to this is the Mingle home screen. So the idea is that because this is a single point of entry into the system, Mingle is your home page within your browser, and it will work within any browser, whether that's Chrome, Safari, Internet Explorer, Firefox, or whatever, and it's using standard HTML technology. But the idea is your Mingle home page is your home page. This is the place where you start every day. And from within that, you can then break out into the different areas of the business. You can review your alerts, tasks, posts, and you can interact with other people within the organization. So within within the home screen, as you can see here, the application is roughly divided into 3 sections. We've obviously got icons across the top, and these will vary depending on the different connected applications that we're using. So we may have icons that represent financials, Sun Systems, and maybe a manufacturing application, expense management, sourcing or purchasing application, or performance management, or whatever that may be. But the home page is where we have all of our critical information pushed to us, and that's the other thing that's fundamental about Mingle and the ION technology. We don't have to go into all of these different places to get this information out. The idea is that if anything important that we need to see or we need to have visibility of, something we need to interact with in any way, shape or form, then that information is pushed to us. So this is what Infor ION is doing. It's using alert technology, it's using workflow, it's using tasks to actually push business critical information to the people that need to see it. So if we start off on the left hand side, the first column within Mingle is all about alerts. So the alerts is where we would see alert that something we need to be notified about has happened. So this could be there's been a shortfall in production. It could be that somebody's created a new project code for for a given set of projects, or for a specific analysis dimension that we're watching. It could be that somebody's raised a new purchase order, or somebody's raised a purchase order over a given amount. So we can define criteria for alerts, and we can have those alerts published directly to our homepage. It could be, as an example, we may have a problem with an integration. So we may have an integration between the P2P system and the financial ledgers, and if for whatever reason there was a problem overnight with the import of the invoices and credit notes, then we can put in an automatic alert that goes out to the relevant people, and that can be published directly to the Mingle homepage. And obviously from within there, people can then choose what to do with these alerts. The alerts themselves, so the alert panel, can be categorized, so we can filter the alerts by category. We can sort the alerts by time. We can also set up things like escalations, so if something doesn't happen in an alert within a certain time frame, it can be escalated to somebody else. So we can also sort the alerts within the alert column by escalation status. And once we have an alert, we can drill into it, we can look at the detail behind that. It will bring up a graphical representation. In the case of that integration failure, we'll see exactly what's happening there. And we can choose to assign this alert either to ourselves, or we can assign this alert to somebody else. That can be a group of people, it can be an individual connection, or it can be to the entire organization. So we can actually share that information, we can assign that alert to ourselves as a task to deal with. The second column in the Mingle homepage is the tasks column. So the tasks is really just a queue of work that needs to be done. So it's obviously work that needs to be done by myself or somebody within my team. So tasks are usually the end result of workflow. So ION workflow, again, maybe somebody needs to authorize a payment run, somebody needs to authorize a specific journal type. We can set up a workflow to manage that, but the end result of that workflow is that somebody needs to do something. Maybe they need to approve a purchase requisition, they need to authorize an expense claim, there's been an invoice greater than £50,000 and is authorized by the certain cost center manager. So again, we can have that published to somebody's Mingle homepage as a task to be dealt with, and again, we can set up escalations. We can quickly approve and reject those things directly from the homepage, and as we said, all of that is powered by ION workflow. So again, fundamental to that is we're pushing this information out to the end user. We're not waiting for them to log into the system to find out they've got something to deal with. We're pushing that task out to the person that needs to deal with it. So hopefully that can be something that could be dealt with quicker. It allows us to work more efficiently. And then finally, the third area of the homepage is the post screen. So the post is where we can we can get a summary of conversations that are happening within the organization. So once users are set up on Mingle, they can interact very much in the same ways you can with people on things like LinkedIn or Facebook. You can actually post or share information to a group or to an individual user. People can provide feedback on that in the form of comments. So the post section on the homepage really just gives you a summary of your posts or conversations that are happening in groups that you follow. You can actually search for conversations, so you can search for topics of interest using the search at the top there. So if you were looking to search anything to do with a certain project. You could actually search by the project code, and you could see any conversation where somebody had actually referenced that project code, or any instance where somebody had shared that project code with somebody else within the organization. So the home page is really just a summary of those three key pieces of information: alerts, tasks, and posts. And then at the bottom of the screen we have graphical representations, and we can set up different business intelligence widgets that are specific to alerts, specific to tasks, specific to the social posts. The icons across the top right, you can see we're on the home page here. If we go into the next icon, that is really just bringing down more detail of each of those things that are on the home page. So we have the detailed page for alerts, and again within that would give you a more detailed view of all of the alerts that are relevant, and again from there you can assign those to yourself or somebody else within your team. You can expand on those alerts. The next icon is of course the tasks, and again it's just a more detailed view of all of the different tasks, and again a detailed view of all of the posts within the post area of the Mingle home page. And then finally, the last icon on the right there is what we call the activity feed. So again, this is very similar to Facebook in some sense. This is where we have really the ability to connect with other people within the organization. So we can search for other people to connect to. We can join groups, much as the same way as you can join a group on LinkedIn. So if there are there's a specific group for accounts payable, or for finance, or for IT support, you can join that group, and then you can have conversations within that group. You can choose to follow other people within the organization, and the system is dynamic, so that over time as you join different groups and you start to follow different people, the system will then also start to recommend other groups and other colleagues or other users for you to follow. But again, fundamental to this posting facility on the activity feed, you can see here, and I'll just give you an example of this when we look at the product in a second of how you can do this. But we have the ability to share the context of any application. So we can see here somebody maybe shared something from within the help desk system, or we can share an inquiry screen from within Sun. You can actually publish that to the feed, and then people can actually drill back to that. If they have the relevant rights, then you can have them just click on the icon, and that will actually, or just click on the link that you've published, and you can publish the context of a screen or of an account or of an analysis code or whatever it is, a transaction, and then just by clicking on that link in the activity feed, you can just drill straight through to the underlying application. So Infor Mingle as a platform is really founded on these four pillars, and these four pillars hopefully aim to address some of the problems of the so-called disparate enterprise that we talked about at the beginning. So we talked about contextual, the ability to make all information contextual, collaboration, the ability to diagram or start to visualize the relationships between different applications within the system. This is what Graph is about, and then the ability to interact around a business process. And of course, the heart of all of this is Infor Mingle. So we mentioned this at the beginning, and again, really just as a way of summary, just to summarize, the concept behind the contextuality is that Mingle allows us to combine contextual information both from within the enterprise and from external sources. So as an example, every screen, everything within Mingle is contextual. So as we'll see in a second, you have the embedded ERP application, so you can have some systems embedded in Mingle, and you can then make the surrounding screens context sensitive. But an example of taking some externally contextual information and applying that to the Mingle environment would be, I don't know, maybe as part of the marketing team you're working with a given customer, or maybe as part of the AP team, you work with a key set of suppliers, and you want to add information maybe relating to the supplier's website, or maybe your supplier's Twitter account, you can actually add that as a, a context-sensitive widget inside of Mingle, and then as you scroll between the different customer accounts or the different supplier accounts in some systems, you could actually embed the related Twitter feed for that supplier or that account into the Mingle environment. So it really gives you a wider vision of everything to do, with any business entity, whether that's a customer, an account, or an employee, or whoever it may be. So again, it's that concept of bringing together applications, people, and data. And of course, the collaboration is absolutely fundamental, the ability to capture all of those conversations that happen outside of the system. And again, all of this is visible, and it's recorded. So if we want to know maybe 2 years down the line, why did we come to a certain decision, or why did we modify that P&L report, and why do we adjust that line to say this? There's probably a valid reason, but traditionally that kind of conversation probably happens outside of the system and it's not really captured anywhere. So Mingle allows us to capture that. Why did we approve that PO, or why did we go with this supplier when we originally set up the sourcing contract for IT hardware? By using the collaboration aspect of Mingle, we can actually capture all of those conversations that would normally happen outside of the system, and we can have those inside of the system. And in the case, again, maybe where you're using multiple applications, you can start to map the relationships between the different applications. So here we've got a production example, but this could just as easily be Sun Systems and expense management, or it could be Sun Systems and the purchasing system. So if there are multiple people that need to be involved in the business process and they span multiple applications or multiple areas of expertise within the organization, as a business document passes through the different workflow, you can actually start to build up a graphical representation. You can start to see who are these people that get involved typically in authorizing a purchase order, or approving the creation of a vendor. And you can actually start to visualize and graphically represent and track and monitor trends in the way that these things happen within the organization. And then finally, if we're using workflow to generate tasks, again, we have full visibility around that business process, and we're capturing the conversation. If we're authorizing a requisition or a purchase order as part of a workflow, we can see who's involved in that. So you can see in this case, Emily Williams needed to approve this. You can see when she approved it. You can get a visual representation of who Emily is, and if she added an attachment to that workflow process, then you would get a copy of that attachment in the audit trail as well. So again, it's really just bringing together all of these different aspects of people, data, applications, and then delivering that through a single, contextual, intuitive user interface. And again, this is probably just a sort of recap of the same things, but what this is saying is that within any enterprise or within any organization, traditionally we have structured processes. So we have structured processes. These are the traditional processes that are managed within inside a system, so within the financial system, payment process, or a ledger evaluation, or creation of a purchase order. And then around that there may be some flexible processes, so processes that contain variables, depending on what cost center is implicated on the purchase request. It may need to go to a different process, and perhaps those processes are happening inside of a system or inside of a different system, or perhaps again they're managed manually or paper-based, authorizing an invoice. But then we have all of these other unstructured processes, which are all providing input and output to the end result. So in order to get a purchase order out to the supplier, there's probably going to be some kind of conversation between the person that raised the purchase order, the person that's involved in the authorization process, maybe some backwards and forwards, email, telephone conversations. But again, traditionally none of those are actually captured. What we're saying is that with Mingle, we can actually get away from that. We can actually interact directly within the system, and Infor Mingle allows us to capture all of those conversations around a business process. Okay, so just very quickly, we saw a couple of screenshots there. I'll just very quickly, just to sort of wrap us up, just switch across to a demo machine, and we can see what this looks like. And again, just talk you through some of the screen layouts very quickly. So, just make sure I'm on the right machine. Okay, so we said that the way we access Infor Mingle is, of course, via the browser. So again, we would normally have a single sign-on process, but I'm just going to log in as a specific user here. So I'm just going to log into the Mingle homepage. Okay, so we're logged in as a user here, Percy Kingston, so we can see his default page is that feed. So we can see all of the different things that are happening. So he's following a specific customer. He's he's got some information about maybe an integration error. He's got some alerts in there. But if we just go to his homepage, we get that breakdown of alerts, tasks, and posts. So in the alert section, he's got his alerts relating to the different things happening within Sun Systems. So Percy is somebody that works in finance. So he's got an alert that the integration for business unit ALC failed. So there's a problem overnight with the integration. So he can then choose to either assign that process to himself, or he can assign that to somebody else. He can share that with somebody, so if he wants to pass that on to somebody else to take a look at, then maybe he wants to pass it over to Patricia, his colleague. He could say, dear Patricia, have a look at this, and then he can add that, share that with one of his connections. He could actually share it to a public group, so if he was part of a group for accounts payable, or as part of a group for the general finance group, he could share that with the entire group, and then that would appear in the home page and the feed of all of the members within that group. What you can also do is you can also reference. You can also tag users very much the same way as you can in Twitter. So you can actually put in the @ sign and then just put in the user ID of somebody within the system. So you can say, dear, just tag somebody within that, or tag a number of people, share that piece of information with them, and then again that would go straight to them for them to have a look at. Another example of an alert, we've got an alert set up on analysis codes. So in this case, somebody's created a new analysis code within the project dimension. So the reason this appeared in Percy's list of alerts is that he'd actually set up an alert, or he'd actually said that he wished to explicitly follow the project dimension. So he wants to be notified every time he somebody creates something within there. So the way he does that is if he goes into Sun Systems itself, if he just logs into Sun Systems from the icon at the top there, let's just have a look. Just do a new session. I'll just go into analysis codes. So what we're looking at here is, of course, the traditional Sun Systems analysis screen, but that's the web version of Sun Systems embedded inside of the Mingle environment. So within a given analysis dimension, let's say project. he's actually got an alert set up on that, so he can, he's set himself up to be notified every time something happens within that category. So if we did, if we created another analysis code in there, let's just go and have a look at the last one in the list, P039. Somebody goes and creates a record in there, then in a while he's going to get a notification again that somebody's created a new analysis code. It'll actually tell him what it is. So he can see, even within the embedded application, he can have all of the Mingle alerts, tasks, posts. He can actually have those, again, context sensitive and embedded within the application itself. So you can see there he's got his alert that's come through saying the box manufacturing project has been created. So again, if we have a look at the alerts, this is just the detailed view of all of those alerts, and if he drills into that, he can have a look at that, open the details, and you can see all of those attributes relating to that. So we can see the description, the name of the project that was created. And you can then maybe attach some, put an attachment against this, add some notes, assign it to somebody. You can also set up things so if something changes, so let's say, I don't know, somebody has changed, somebody's changed, the exchange rate for a given currency for a certain period. You can set up an alert on that. So if somebody goes and changes the exchange rate, again, it would produce an alert. You could go in, you would see in the detail what the rate originally was, what it had been changed to, and then you could actually, from within there, you can just drill into the underlying application itself. No, I don't think he's got any tasks available at the moment. He hasn't got any workflow tasks outstanding, but if he did, then that's where he would see them. And in his posts area, you can see here, these are the posts that he's made, or maybe things that have been posted for him to have a look at. So again, maybe somebody's just shared the context of a journal inquiry screen, so maybe somebody's asked Percy to have a look at this supplier. So just by clicking on that, you can actually go into the the application itself, and then that would take them straight into the supplier record. The way in which you do that within that, within the application. So if you wanted to go into a specific account, within Sun Systems, just have a look at the chart of accounts there. You've got your customer account. Anywhere within any application, you've got this share icon. So if you just want to share the context of whatever screen you're in, you can very easily do that. So if you wanted to share that with, share that with another user, share that with user PK3, you can just send them a link to that screen, and then when they get that link on their home page, they can just click on the link and it will take them, assuming they've got access, and access has been defined in the system. If they click on that link, it'll take them straight into that screen within Sun Systems. So it's a very powerful tool, for sharing, any screen within any application, the context of any document, anywhere you are within the organization, you can actually share what you're doing with other people. And if Percy just goes back to his home page there, just see what he's got going on in the activity feed. This is where he could maybe choose to connect with other people. So we've got Percy is part of a group called AP users, and he's connected to another lady called Patricia Keith. But maybe he wants to join the the projects group, so he can connect to that project group. So this is very similar to the LinkedIn, for example. If you want to connect to another user, if you wish to join a group, if he wants to connect to Bob Black, he can connect, or he can just choose to follow Bob Black. So by following him, anything that Bob posts is just then automatically placed into Percy's feed, so he can just get updated anytime anything happens, or anytime Bob does anything. But you can see here, as well as following people, you can also follow an individual, an account. As we got there, you've just got you're just following that individual account within Sun System. So anytime anything changes on that customer record, you would get notified about it. Percy would get notified about that within his feed. So if we just log in, again, we'll just go as a different user. Just go in as Patricia. And again, Patricia's maybe got a slightly different homepage, but you can see here again, maybe she's part of the same group, so in her feed as well, she's also notified of the fact that somebody created a new analysis code. Percy shared that journal entry with her, so again, from there, if she goes into it, or maybe she doesn't have access to that journal entry, but she clicked on that link, then that would take her straight into the journal inquiry within Sun Systems. So you can see here, this is the one, she's been notified that somebody changed the the period rate for period 6, 2013 for the USD to GBP exchange rate. So again, she could go in, have a look at that. As you can see, what the rate has been updated to, which business unit, which period, etc., etc. So these icons, as we said across the top, they obviously represent the different underlying ERP applications, and they will change depending on what what applications you have installed. But in the case of a financials user, it could be Sun Systems. We could have an expense management application in there. But again, any application that we have access to, what's important is that we can share the context of anything within that application with anybody else within the organization, and thereby hopefully bring together people, applications, and data, and allow us to work together in a single platform contextually and with analytics at the core, and by doing that, hopefully work in a much more efficient manager and capture all of those conversations that would normally happen outside of the system. So that's really a very brief overview of Mingle. What I'm going to ask my colleague Emma to do now is just open up the webinar for any questions and answers. So Emma, if you could just open up the line for any questions, we'll take any questions as they come in. So you can just raise your hand using the webinar control panel, or you can just drop Emma a message into the chat window of the webinar tools as well.
Thank you, Richard. Please can anyone let me know if you have any questions. Currently no questions, Richard.
Okay. Okay, we'll just give it a couple more minutes for the questions. What we'll do, of course, as always, is we'll send out a copy of the slides to everybody who attended this afternoon, and on those slides we'll have our contact details. I'll just put our contact details up again on the screen in a second. So if you do have any questions and you want to ask either Emma or myself about anything you've seen, then feel free to drop us an email or give us a call at the Eclipse office. So I'll just put our contact details up on the screen now if you do have any questions after the session. Are there any other questions, Emma?
No questions, Richard, no.
Okay, well, what I'll do is let's wrap this session up. Thank you very much, everybody, for attending. So as I say, I'll leave these contact details up on the screen for a couple more minutes, and then what we'll do is we'll send you a copy of the slides, and Emma will follow up with everybody after the session. So thank you again very much for attending this afternoon, and we look forward to seeing you again soon. Thank you.